Hello and welcome to another tutorial. I'm here to show you how to make this lovely hat. This is the red Zinfandel Beanie. I called it that because I was inspired by this idea of running kind of like these spirally textured patterns here with these little clusters that kind of look like they're grapes hanging off. And I named it after one of my favorite red wines. I mean, really, I love pretty much any red wine you set in front of me, I will drink it. But red Zinfandel is just a particular favorite of mine. And I just saw this purple color and thought, oh, that would be perfect. It looks just like, a nice glass of wine there. So there we go. So I'm really excited to show you this. To be able to make this, I'm going to show you the yarn that I used. So that is going to be this I Love This yarn. It is a Hobby Lobby brand. It's definitely on the more affordable side, as you can see here. This is a 100% acrylic yarn, and it's a category for worsted weight. You would really only need one skein of this to be able to make one of these hats in any of the sizes. If you're going to use one of the larger sizes and you want to make, multiple hats, you're probably going to need to get a second skein. But for some of the smaller and medium sizes, you should maybe even be able to get away with using one skein to make two hats. So that's definitely an option for you if you're on a budget and you still want to be able to make a nice hat. But one thing I also like is sometimes to treat myself and add a little bit of luxury to my hats and accessories. So I have also provided you a Chick That Knitz hand-dyed yarn. This is a 100% superwash merino. It's also a category for worsted weight. But as you can see, it's a little bit more pricey. So if you want to, just treat yourself and really just like make yourself just a really nice superwash merino wool hat, you can get something like this and it will work out very beautifully. So I'll actually be using this yarn on camera to do the tutorial. So then that way you can see what it looks like in both the acrylic and in the wool. So in order to make this hat, you'll obviously need some crochet hooks. The primary crochet hook you're going to need is a size USK, which is a 6.5 millimeter hook. I just have my classic, boy hook right here. And then if you want a tighter ribbing along the edge here, which I prefer on my hats, but some people like them loose, you could just stick with the K the whole time, or you could drop down a hook size or two. I'm just going to drop down this one hook size. So I also have an optional USJ hook, which is a 6 millimeter, also in the boy style. And then the other things you'll need are some accessories. So first of all, you're definitely going to want to find some way to measure the circumference of the head of the person you're making this for. So if it's your own head or a friend or a loved one or something like that, you'll want to make sure you measure the circumference wrapped around where they might wear the hat. So that way you can pick the correct size for what you're needing. And also to be able to measure how big the hat's coming out and everything. You'll also need a stitch marker. I just have this random one that I picked up from an Etsy shop. It's just a kind of a fancy beaded one, but any sort of stitch marker that you can move in and out of the stitches, because like a clasped one you're going to want, because we will be marking the first the first stitch of each round. And so that way it makes it easier to do this spiraling pattern that we will be doing. You'll also need some tapestry needles. So really just one needle that you might need to be able to sew in your ends, and then a pair of scissors to be able to cut your yarn whenever you need to begin and finish. Now, all of these things I will have linked in the description box below, so you can feel free to check any of those out if you don't have these supplies already. But yeah, and it looks like now that you have your supplies, it is time to get started on our red Zinfandel hat. To begin our red Zinfandel beanie, we're going to take our yarn and our size K, 6.5 millimeter hook, and our stitch marker, and we're going to begin with a magic ring. So the way I like to do magic rings is actually based off of a few other designers I've seen. There's all kinds of ways to do magic ring. You can check out any YouTube video on it, but the way I really like that I can remember more easily is if you take the tail end of your yarn and you wrap it 3 times around your index finger and middle finger. So 1, 2, 3, and then kind of just grasp that tail to just keep it steady. And then what you're going to do is you're going to insert your hook underneath these first 2 strands, and you're going to grab this third strand and pull it through these 2. So once I grab that third strand, I'll pull it through these 2, Then just kind of holding it in place, I can pull my fingers gently out and I've got myself my magic ring. Now, if you have a different way of doing magic ring that you prefer, feel free, absolutely do that. Or if you would just rather not mess with magic ring and just do like 3 or 4 chains and then slip stitch to the beginning and create your ring that way, feel free to do any of those things, whatever makes you more comfortable. I just prefer magic ring for hats because I can close it more tightly than I can if I just did like a chain of 3 or 4. But in either case, what you're going to do is still start the same way. Once I've chained into my magic ring, I'm going to now chain up 3 to count as my first double crochet. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3. And that is my very first double crochet of the round. Now, because this is going to count as the first stitch of the round, I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to place it into this top chain that I just made. So I'm going to go under both loops of that chain, just like if I went under both loops of a double crochet. And that tells me that that's the first stitch of the round. Once I do that, I can then go back to my ring and I'm going to work another number of double crochets. So depending on your size, the pattern will tell you how many double crochets to make in here. So you'll take that number plus this chain and that will be the total. So it's either going to be an 11 or a 12 count, depending on your size. So for the size I'm making, which is going to be the medium size, which is the 22-inch one, I'm going to need to do 11 more so that I have a total of 12 double crochets. So to do a double crochet, as a reminder, we will yarn over, insert our hook into the ring, going under both loops of the ring, yarn over and pull up a loop. So I'll have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the second 2. Now I will warn you that this part can be a little bit fiddly because of the magic ring and it's a foundation round. It's just, yeah. But if you just go nice and slowly, working each double crochet into the ring under both strands of yarn, pulling up your loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. If you can take your time, it's definitely worth it. And then you'll be through what I think is the more difficult part of starting this beanie. So I've already worked 2 double crochets plus the chain 3. So right now I have 3 stitches and I need to have a total of 12. So I'm going to add another 8 or 9. All right, so now I can double check my count. I've got my chain 3 for my first stitch, so 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so at this point, this is what I like about the magic ring, is that I can take the tail of my ring and I can start to pull it and I can see, oh, I think I need to twist it there. Start pulling and see which strand it's pulling. And whichever strand it's pulling, I'm going to actually grab that one and start tugging it to tighten the other strand right here. So I tighten it, I just keep pulling. It's going to just tighten, 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 tighten. And that closes that hole up really nice and tight. Then I can go ahead and take the tail, tug it, and it'll pull that strand through. And there we go. We now have a nice, tightly closed hole at the top of our hat. So then that way we won't have to worry about any air getting through there or it poking through. Okay, so that is round number 1, is just these established double crochets. Now round number 2, we are going to be doubling the stitch count. So we're going to be doing a series of increases on every single round up to a certain point where it reaches the circumference that we need. And then we're going to stop increasing. But all of them are basically going to increase the same way. So the first thing we have to do is, in order to create the spiral, we're actually not going to work into the first stitch. Instead, what we'll do is we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. So go ahead and see where my stitch marker was pulling that stitch. So into that stitch right here, we're just going to insert our hook. And I can go ahead and remove my stitch marker now that my hook is inside the stitch. I'm just going to yarn over and just slip stitch, not too tightly, but I'm going to just slip stitch through that stitch that I just made. Once I slip stitch, I'm then going to go to the next stitch of the round. So this is what you're going to do on every round, is you're going to slip stitch into the first one, and your very first stitch will be worked into the second stitch of the round. So my first stitch of this round is going to be a half double crochet. So what I'll do is I'll yarn over, insert under both loops of that double crochet, that second double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops will be on my hook, and then I will yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on my hook. That creates a half double crochet. I'm now going to mark this half double crochet as the first stitch of this round, and now I'm ready to continue. So to do the increase on round number 2, we're going to work a half double crochet, and then we will follow it with a front post double crochet around the stitch that's one below and one to the right. So that's going to be this very first double crochet, which happens to be the chain 3 of our first round. So what that's going to do is, because we worked a stitch, if we work a front post double crochet into the one behind it, it's going to create this lean going this way. So that starts our spiraling effect. So we're going to find our first double crochet, and to do a front post double crochet, we will yarn over, and then we will go around the post of that stitch from the front to the back, just like this, yarn over and pull up a loop, and that'll give us the 3 loops on our hook that we would use for a normal double crochet. And then at this point, we can just finish our double crochet. So yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is now our second stitch. So we now have our first half double crochet, and then our front post double crochet is going into the stitch kind of to the right, and so it's leaning this way to start our spiral. Okay, now that we've done that, that has taken our very first stitches and made 2 stitches out of 1, and that's how we're going to increase. So we're going to find the next stitch, which is going to be this next V we haven't worked into. We're going to yarn over, insert into both of those loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 to create our half double crochet. And then working in the posts of the double crochet that's below and to the right. So it's the next one that we haven't worked. So we worked around this first one, so we'll work around the second one now. We're going to yarn over, go around that post, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that will create 4 stitches where we used to have 2. And then we're just going to continue that pattern all the way around. So if you began with 11, you're essentially going to wind up with 22 stitches at the end. There will be 11 half double crochets and 11 front post double crochets. If you started with 12, we're going to double it up to 24. So that's going to be 12 half double crochets and 12 front post double crochets in total. So I'll go ahead and start that. So we're not going to work in this one because that's the one that we worked our half double crochet in before. So we're going to move on to the next one and work a half double crochet, and then a front post double around the one right before it. So that's my third increase. So I have 3 front post doubles so far. Then I will half double crochet into my next one, front post double crochet around the one right before it. And that's 4. And then I do that again into this next one. Half double crochet. And then find the next one I didn't work around, and that's the next front post double crochet. Oh, I forgot to yarn over. There we go. And that's number 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Okay, so I've got 7 more. So I'll need to do half double crochet into this one. And that makes 6. So at this point, I should be halfway around because I had 12 in the beginning. So I should have 6 front post double crochets and 6 half double crochets for a total of 12 stitches. So that means I'm on the right track. So the next half I should be able to continue, make 12 more stitches, and that will have doubled the size of my round. So I'm going to go ahead and continue working that just really quickly here. So half double. And if you're not quite sure which one you've worked around, you can always look to see where your last front post double crochet was in and kind of just like pinch it with like your thumb. And then that helps you can see where the next one's going to be, which is this one right here. And so I'll kind of pinch that one with my thumb to kind of pop it out for me like that. And I know, okay, that's the next one I need to work my front post double into. So that way I don't get lost and think, wait, which of these do I go into? They're all kind of squishing together. And that can happen. So if you ever need to, just kind of stretch it, find where those double crochet posts are, and then that makes it a little easier to see where you need to insert your front post double crochet. I'm almost around to the end. All right, so I'm at the end here. And one thing that we'll notice is that, okay, I've run out of stitches to work into because I'm back to my first stitch of the round. But remember, we did have that slip stitch that we did into the top of our chain 3 earlier. So that's actually going to be the last thing I work into, is that joining slip stitch, which is why earlier I said, let's not make that too tight because we will be working into it. So I'm going to just work my half double crochet underneath the loops of that joining slip stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then I can do my front post double around that last double crochet. And I have now finished round 2. So once we do that, we should now have a total of however many spiral, you can see it's already starting to spiral. How many front post double crochets you need should be the same number as the double crochets you had below, plus these half double crochets in between. So now to begin round 3, we're going to begin every round the exact same way. Like I said earlier, we're going to find our first stitch of the round, insert our hook, remove our marker, and then just work a slip stitch to join, not making it too tight, but it is going to make a place that's just a slip stitch there. And then working into the very next one, we're going to do a half double crochet. So not into the one we slipped into, but into the very next stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And now that's my new first stitch of the round. So I'm going to grab my stitch marker, pop it into there. And now what we're going to be doing is essentially taking our initial number and tripling it. So to do that, we're going to work a half double crochet in this stitch. Then we'll work a half double crochet into the next stitch here. So that's 2 stitches. But then we get our third stitch by adding another front post double crochet into this one that we just passed by. So once again, we're going to yarn over, go around the post of this front post double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And that again continues that spiraling pattern by working 2 stitches, and then the third stitch leans to the left. And then we're going to find the next one that we have not worked in yet, which is going to be this one right here. We're going to work a half double crochet. And then we'll work another half double crochet into the next stitch. And then we will make our third stitch by doing a front post double crochet around the previous front post double crochet. And there we go. We now have 6 stitches. And you'll just continue this way all the way around until you get to the beginning again. So we're going to yarn over, go through this first stitch, make a half double crochet into the next one. So you'll make 2 half double crochets. And then you'll get your third stitch for the increase by doing the front post double crochet around the previously unworked front post double crochet. And there you go. And it should become clear now that you're starting to see this spiraling start to happen, which will make it a lot easier to see once you have that established. So it'll be a lot easier to work the following round. So we're just going to continue that increase all the way around here. All right, I'm coming almost to the end here. Okay. So I'm now back to the beginning here, and I have one more front post double crochet to work around for my spiral. And once again, we've come to where we have a single stitch left, and then we have this joining slip stitch. So that's again going to be the last half double crochet we will work is in that joining slip stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and insert into the last stitch here, half double crochet, and then insert underneath that joining slip stitch here, and half double crochet, and then make my final front post double crochet around this last front post double crochet of the previous round. And that is the end of round 3. So as you can see, all we're really doing is just increasing by another 11 or 12 stitches by going from, we had this initial number, then we doubled it, and then we tripled it. So next we'll quadruple it, and then times 5, times 6, times 7, etc., until we get to the size that our pattern says that we need. So I'll continue to work my increases off camera, and then I will get back to you or meet you back when it's time to start incorporating the clusters that you're going to start seeing that create that like kind of grapevine look on our hat. All right, so I have worked up some increases and we are now about to start in round 5. So round 5 is still going to be an increase round for all the sizes, but that is also where you're going to start seeing the pattern start to build out. So we're going to be working that pattern together on here just so that way you can know what to do, because this can be a little bit of a confusing part even if you're reading it in the actual written pattern. So I'll walk you through it here. So I'm going to go ahead and do my slip stitch into my very first stitch of the round, just like I do anyway. That has not changed. So slip stitch. And then I'll work my first half double crochet into the next stitch. And then I will go ahead and mark that as the first stitch of the round. And then rather than increasing by going all the way across here and then working our front post double, what we're actually going to do is work what is called a V stitch. So in the pattern, it describes the V stitch as, it's kind of complicated sounding, but it's really not. It's just making sure you're not adding more stitches to your stitch count than you actually need to. So what you're going to do is actually you'll work this first half double crochet, and then you'll work a second half double crochet. So we'll work our second one right here. So that's 2 stitches. And what we're doing is we're increasing it from sets of 4 to sets of 5. To do the set of 5, we've got these 2, we now need 3 more stitches. So it looks like we've got these 2 plus the front post. But what we'll actually do is do a front post double crochet around our front post double crochet here first to create one that leans to the right. So as you can see here, this front post double crochet leans to the right, going this way. Then what we need to do is we need to half double crochet 2 together, because then that means we'll still have 1 stitch after this one, but it's pulling these 2 stitches back here together. Since I worked a front post double crochet, I didn't actually work anything into this next stitch. So I need to go ahead and grab that just so that I don't have any like gaps or holes in my hat. So I'm going to kind of push my front post double crochet forward and find this stitch that I did not work into. And we're going to start our half double crochet into that stitch. If you just kind of forward here, we can see both those loops there. We will insert our hook under both loops, yarn over and pull up a loop. But before I finish this half double crochet, I want to do 2 together. I'm actually going to go to the next stitch that I would work into, which is this next V right here. And I'm just going to insert my hook underneath that V and pull up another loop. So what that's going to do is it's going to put both of those stitches that are behind this front post stitch together as one stitch. So I'll have 4 loops on my hook. I will yarn over and pull through all 4 loops together. And that will create a half double crochet, but across 2 stitches, and kind of have that little extra yarn over that I had from before. So now that I've done that, I've created 1, 2, 3. This third stitch is the front post double crochet. 4 is that half double crochet 2 together. And then the 5th one is going to be the last front post double crochet to create this V stitch. So that's going to create the left leaning one that continues this spiral. So I'll yarn over, go around the same front post stitch that I worked this one around, go around the post, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And if I can kind of stretch that here, we can see now how it creates that little V stitch right there. So that's all the V stitch is you work a front post double, half double crochet 2 together to create that kind of center stitch here, and then another front post double around the same one you worked the first one around, and then that creates that 3 stitch count of our V stitch. So now I should have a total of 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that creates the increase on round 5. So I'll just walk you through that again on this next one. So we've got these 4 stitches. So I'm going to go 2 half double crochets first. So I'll work a half double crochet in the first stitch, and then a half double crochet into the second one. And then across these next stitches, I will work my V stitch. So skipping this next one, I will work a front post double around our front post double of the round below. Then working into that skipped stitch that's behind it, I will work my half double crochet. I'll start my half double crochet and then go into the very next stitch and pull up a loop to do a half double crochet 2 together. Then I'll finish it off with a front post double crochet around the same front post double crochet I worked around earlier. Pull up a loop, finish that, and that creates my next V stitch right there. And then I'm just going to continue that pattern all the way around. So I'll work 2 half double crochets, then I will work my V stitch around the next front post double, followed by the half double crochet 2 together in those stitches that start being behind this one, and then a loop into the next one, and then my front post double around the same one to create the left leaning stitch. And there we have it. And that's all you have to do for round 5 is you continue repeating those 2 half double crochets and then your V stitch all the way around. So I'm going to work that part off camera, and then I'll meet you back when we get to the beginning of the round to show you what to do for the next stitch or next part of this repeat stitch pattern. So in the world of filming, unfortunately, I seem to have been missing a clip. So I'm going to re-record it here with just a smaller sample just to show you how to do it. So in the beginning of round 6, one of the things you'll encounter is that you'll need to start making clusters while doing your increasing. So I've gone ahead and made this little sample here. It might be a little difficult to see, but I've got a V stitch just right over here. So you've got your front post double here, your other front post double here wrapped around the same stitch with that half double crochet 2 together here in the middle. So I'm going to go ahead and just work my half double crochets until I get to that part here. Just I think one. Okay. All right. So then what you're going to do is you will make a front post cluster around this first front post stitch of your V. So to do that, what you're going to do is basically just do a series of front post double crochets, but not finish them until the very end. So how you do that is you're going to take your hook and yarn over, go around the post of that first front post double crochet, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. and then you'll yarn over and pull through just those first two. And then instead of completing the stitch, you're going to do that again around that post. So once again, we will yarn over, go around the post again, pull up a loop. You're gonna have a few extras. You're gonna have 4 loops now, but you're still just going to yarn over and pull through those first 2. And now you'll have another loop added onto here. So you've got your first loop, your first double crochet, your second double crochet, and now we're going to do that one more time for a third double crochet. So we're going to yarn over, go around that post one more time, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through just those first 2, and now we will have 4. So we've got our first loop we started with, and then the tops of the 3 double crochets that we're forming our cluster with. Now we can pull it all together by yarning over and just pull through all 4 loops on the hook, and that will form our nice little cluster here. Then what we'll do is, if we kind of push it forward here, we're going to go back and see the stitch that's behind it, just like we did when we were making the V-stitch. And we're going to do a half double crochet 2 together. So we will yarn over, insert our hook into the first V that's right behind the cluster we just made. And there we go. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then we want to do 2 together. So then we'll go to our next stitch, insert our hook, pull up another loop, 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. So that keeps the stitch count the same. So the cluster and then the next stitch still count as 2 stitches. And then what we'll need to do is we will need to then do another half double crochet, because this time we're going to have 2 half double crochets spaced between the cluster and then this front post. And then after that, once we do that second half double crochet, we will then do our front post double crochet around the next front post double crochet of the V. And then that's going to create the clusters that hang off of the little vine looking cable right here. So that's all you need to do. So for round 6, you're just going to keep repeating that. You'll work your half double crochets where the pattern tells you, then you work the cluster, half double crochet 2 together, do 1 more half double crochet to add a little extra space, and then you'll go do the front post double crochet. And then just keep doing that and then get all the way to the end of round 6. And once you do that, you can then be ready for round 7 and 8. I'm coming around to the last repeat that I need to do. And as a reminder, our last half double crochet is just going to be worked into that joining slip stitch, followed by a front post double crochet to finish the round. Now for rounds 7 and 8, there are actually going to be different instructions depending on your size. So you definitely want to pay attention to which instructions are for your size only and ignore the ones that are not for yours. So I won't be able to show you every single thing for round 7 and 8, but it's essentially going to work very similarly, where the next round you're going to do whatever like half double crochet pattern it tells you to do. So for some of the sizes, it's going to do something like, you're going to half double crochet 2 together in certain places. Other sizes, you're just going to half double crochet across. But in either case, the next round is essentially just half double crocheting and then adding an extra stitch by doing the last front post double crochet. So you're not doing any clusters or V stitches on round 7. So that's pretty easy to do. So it's just half double crochets, front post double crochet. Round 8 is when you do have to incorporate another set of V stitches, but you've already seen how to do a V stitch. So the only part about round 8 that you have to really pay attention to is whether or not you're doing half double crochets just plain, or if you're having to do any sort of half double crochet 2 together. So what I'm going to do is actually go ahead and work up my round 7 and 8 off camera. You can go ahead and follow along for like the V stitch and everything like that, because then what we're really going to need is to see how to do rounds 9, 10, and 11, because that's going to be the same for every single size. So I want to make sure I show you those instructions so that every size knows what to do for rounds 9, 10, and 11. Even though I'm not able to really show rounds 7 and 8 for all the sizes, I at least can show you some tricks for how to make sure you're going into the correct stitches, because I know the previous round there were some weird stitches and I just want to show you how to deal with that. So one thing to note is that if you turn your work to where you're looking at the tops of your stitches, you'll see that there's a connecting line of V's. So these are going to help you figure out where is your next stitch in the round. So for example, for this one, I just need to work 6 half double crochets followed by a front post double crochet to increase it up to 7. So I'm going to find those stitches. So this one was one that I had worked into previously. So that's not my first one. It's going to be this one. So this is going to be 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then if I keep holding on to that 6th stitch, if I turn my work forward, I can see, oh yeah, it's the one stitch that's just past this front post double crochet, just like it's always been when we've worked in the previous rounds. Then after that 6th stitch, work my front post double crochet, and that will work for me. So what I'll do is go ahead and show you. So in this next one, it's just a normal one right here. So half double crochet. And then the next one will be this gap right here, which is right underneath the second V. And then sometimes with the cluster, it can be a bit confusing. So what I like to do is, again, just turn it to where I can see the top of the stitch and see that the top of the cluster was this one I just worked into. So the next stitch I want to work into is this V. It's kind of this smaller gap right here, just past these cluster stitches. And it looks like they're kind of going into it, like the yarn strands are going into it. That's the one I want to work into. So that little space right there, underneath both those loops of the V, make a half double crochet. The next one is going to be that half double crochet 2 together. This one, it's not super difficult to work into. There's actually going to be a slightly kind of bigger gap right here. And if you check again, the next V is right above that gap. So we can yarn over, insert into that gap there, pull up a loop, and then complete our half double crochet. And then the next one is just going to be in this next V right here. It's just this gap right here to the right of our front post double crochet here. And then the last one I need to work is this next one just to the left of that post. And that will be my 6th half double crochet. And then my 7th stitch will be my front post double crochet. Then I just do that all the way across. So making sure I can look to see, oh, look at all those V's. So hopefully that helps you with being able to work in rounds 7 and 8, working into some of these kind of weirder stitches. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish my part off camera, like I said before, and meet you back up for round 9. I've now reached the end of round 8. So by the end of round 8, all the sizes should be done with increasing. So whatever size you're making at this point, what you might want to do is just check to see if this is about kind of the width of the crown of the wearer. Now it's going to stretch a little bit because as we continue working, it's not going to immediately start dropping. It is going to kind of taper and round down. So it is going to still have a little bit of room to grow, but we're going to stop adding stitches from here on out. So for rounds 9, 10, and 11, you're just going to be repeating those rounds whatever number of times your pattern tells you to get the length of your beanie. So to do round 9, you're going to slip stitch into the first stitch, just like we've done before. And then because we don't want to increase any more stitches, but still keep this spiral pattern going, what we're going to do is in the first 2 stitches, we will actually half double crochet 2 together. So the next repeat is going to be a half double crochet 2 together. So we're going to pull up our loop, go into the next stitch, pull up another loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 4. And then now that's my first stitch of my round. So I'll go ahead and take my stitch marker, put that in there. And then we're going to work another number of stitches. So depending on your size, it's going to tell you to work another additional however many half double crochets. For my size, it is going to be 2 more. So we'll go ahead and do those 2. And then it's going to have us do our front post cluster. So we're going to do them exactly like we've done before. So it's just going to be the same as before. So we'll do our yarn over, pull through 2, and then go around, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, go around, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we'll have 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. And then just like we did before, we're going to need to do a half double crochet 2 together to get this stitch that we skipped behind the cluster. And then into the next loop, or sorry, pull up another loop into the next stitch, and then yarn over, pull through all 4. And then we're going to do 1 more half double crochet, followed by our front post double crochet. So depending on your size, this repeat should be the same number of stitches from here on out. So for me, it's going to be a repeat of 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it'll be 7 stitches every repeat all the way around. And I have 12 sets of those in my size, so that should be a total of 84 stitches. And that 84 stitch count will stay the same from here on out. So no more increasing. And that's true for every size. So whatever stitch count you're supposed to end with, that's where you should be at the end of round 9. So now that I've told you that, so we're going to do the next part, which is just like we did before. We're going to half double crochet 2 together so that we don't increase any stitches. So we're going to go into the first one and then pull up another loop in the second one and yarn over and pull through all 4. Work whatever number of half double crochets it is for our size. Work our front post cluster. And then work our half double crochet 2 together through the one behind the cluster and the next stitch. Now, I didn't actually go through the stitch there. There we go. All right. Work another half double crochet. And then our front post double crochet. And then that's all you do to get around round 9. Oh, sorry, my yarn ball just kind of went flying here. That's all you have to do to get through round 9 is just keep repeating that, where you'll do half double crochet 2 together to start. Half double crochet the number of times that it says for your size. There. Cluster. Half double crochet 2 together. Half double crochet. And then front post double crochet. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat doing that all the way around off camera, and then I will meet you back to show you what to do for round 10. I just made it around to the end of round 9. So now to show you round 10, we're going to slip stitch into our very first stitch like before. And then once again, we want to make sure we don't accidentally do an increase. So what we're going to do is do half double crochet 2 together into these first 2 stitches. Once I do that, I'll go ahead and make sure I mark that first stitch again. There we go. And then for this round, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is just work the number of half double crochets that it says to do for your size. And then you work a front post double crochet, because the previous round was a cluster round. So there's always going to be one round after that that's just half double crochets and then that last front post double crochet. Sorry, my battery died in the middle of that last clip. So I just wanted to quickly review that how you'll do the rest of round 10 is you're going to just work one half double crochet two together. And then you'll work just a number of half double crochets, however many it says to do for your size. And then ending it with a front post double crochet around the next front post double crochet to continue our nice spiral pattern. So you're going to repeat that all the way around, working just half double crochet two together, several half double crochets, front post double, half double crochet two together, bunch of half post double crochets, front post double crochet. And then once you get all the way around, you'll then be ready to begin round 11, which is the final round of the repeat. So I'll work this off camera and then get back to you to show you how to do that. Okay, so we just finished up with round number 10. So our final repeat round is going to be round number 11. So just like with any of the other rounds, we're going to slip stitch into our first stitch. And also, just like the previous rounds, we don't want to increase the count. So we're going to actually do a half double crochet two together as our first stitch. Use our stitch marker to mark that first one. And there we go. And then this is going to be our V-stitch round. So kind of like what we did when we did our first V-stitches, we are going to work a certain number of half double crochets depending on what size we're making. So we'll go ahead and work those. Let's see here. And as a reminder, the V-stitch is worked around the next post stitch. So we're going to have a right leaning front post, half double crochet these two stitches together, and then we'll finish with the left leaning post around the same post stitch. So I'll go ahead and work our first front post double crochet of the V. Followed by a half double crochet two together across these two stitches here. And finishing off with the last front post double crochet around the same post stitch we worked around earlier. And that's it. That's all you need to do for round 11. So let's go through that again. We're going to start with a half double crochet two together across the next two stitches here. And then we'll half double crochet however many it says for our size. And then we will work a V-stitch. And then I just continue repeating that same thing all the way around until the beginning. And then all I have to do is go back and start repeating rounds 9, 10, and 11 again for a certain number of times. And then after that, the pattern will say to then work another repeat of just rounds 9 and 10. Because what rounds 9 and 10 will do is work one more cluster, followed by one more just regular round of half double crochets and front post stitch. And then after that, you'll begin the next part, which is the ribbing around the bottom of our beanie. So I'm going to go ahead and work my rest of my round 11, and then I'm going to work my repeats of 9, 10, and 11 around the number of times that I need to. And then I'll meet you back up to show you what to do next to prepare for your ribbing. All right, I've reached my final repeat of my last round. So all the sizes are going to end with a repeat of rounds 9 and 10, which is just several half double crochets followed by a front post double crochet. You do that, so work into that last slip stitch. And then my final front post double crochet. I just finished my last front post double crochet, so what we're going to do now is finish off with one round of single crochets into every stitch. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and slip stitch into that first stitch like before, but instead of doing any decreases, we're just going to work one single crochet in every stitch around. What this does is it gives us a nice foundation for later whenever we do our ribbing. It gives us kind of a nice clean transition line. So, almost did yarn over. So we're just going to single crochet into every stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and work that off camera, and then I will join you when I get to the end of the single crochet round to show you what to do next to get set up for your ribbing. I'm coming now to the final single crochets of the round. So then once we reach that last one, what we're going to do is remove our stitch marker. And then we're going to slip stitch into that first stitch. And then once we do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and mark this stitch right here, because that's going to be the last stitch we're going to work a ribbing row into. And so I'll be showing you that later. But for now, just know that once you get those single crochets all the way around, you're ready to begin the ribbing of the hat. To do the ribbing, what you're going to do is actually switch from the K hook down to the J hook, or whatever size you're wanting to use if you want that tighter ribbing. If you don't want that tighter ribbing, you can just stick with the K hook for this part. But what you're going to do is, regardless of whichever one, you're going to still do the following. You will chain 13. And we'll kind of tighten down that last chain right there. And then what we'll do is we'll just work single crochets into each chain across. So we're going to just go into that second chain from hook, single crochet, and then single crochet across. And because we chained 13, but then only started working in the second chain from the hook, we should now have 12 total single crochets. And that's going to be the length of our ribbing. So then what we'll do is we're going to find the next 2 stitches along our brim. So not this very first one, that's the one that this one worked into, but we're going to put the top of this into this stitch. So we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch along the edge of the brim. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next one to begin the next row of single crochet ribbing. So now what we can do is we can turn. We'll skip those 2 slip stitches, and then we will work into the back loop only of our single crochets. So we've got our 2 loops on the top that look like a V. We're going to go just into that back one that's farther away from us. Insert our hook. Oops, I should probably go under my yarn there. Insert our hook, and then work our single crochet. And then we will work a single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch across. And that will give us a total of 12 single crochets. So this should always be 12, or whatever number. If you adjusted the size of the brim, you want to make sure you stay on that same number the whole time. So we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm on number 4, or wait, no, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sorry, 5, 6, 11, and And this is why I like to count, because then this last one is a little sometimes tough to see, but it's still there. I'm going to make sure we work into that last stitch's back loop right there. And that makes 12. Now, to keep the edge of your ribbing a little bit smoother, I like a nice clean edge. I go ahead and just not do a chain one whenever I turn and work. Instead, what I do is I just kind of flip my work over, and I can see the back loop there. I'll go under my yarn, go through that back loop, and then I can pull the yarn through to create my first single crochet. And that just creates this nice smoother edge without this extra turning chain. Now, if you find that you need to do an extra turning chain just because that's what's more comfortable for you, feel free to do that. It's up to you. It's your own look for your own hat that you want to do. I just personally prefer not to do the turning chain. Once you get back to the hat edge, you're then going to slip stitch along the next 2 stitches just like before. Then you'll turn and work back loop only single crochets, and you just keep doing that back and forth all the way around. And I'll go ahead and work that off camera, and then I'll show you what to do when I get back here in order to join up your ribbing. I just finished working a ribbing row, and we now only have 2 stitches left on the edge. So I'm going to go ahead and work my slip stitches into both of those. 1 and 2. And then once we do that, we're going to work one more row or one more set of ribbing rows. So we'll just go ahead and turn. Skip those 2 slip stitches and work work the single crochets down these 12 in the back loop only. And of course, once we get to the end, we will turn. We won't chain one, we'll just work a single crochet into the back loop of each stitch. And now we should be at the joining slip stitch here. So what we're going to do is work one final kind of slip stitch into that just to kind of secure it. And then we're going to turn to where we're going to take the joining, and in order to do the joining, we need to take the right sides of our ribbing. So the sides that's going to be on the outside, and actually put them together. So that's called right side facing. And then we're going to turn to where we can see the wrong sides here. And we're just going to match stitch for stitch. So each stitch along the ribbing of my last row I just worked, and then the free loops of the chain that I started with, you're going to now work a slip stitch through both of those. So we're going to find our first one here. We're going to insert our hook into that stitch. I usually like to do under both loops. Then find the free loops of the chain, the very first chain of the first row. Stick my hook through both of those, yarn over, and just pull a loop through everything on the hook. And then I just do that into the next one as well. So I'll find that next stitch, number 2, find the next set of free loops, slip stitch through both. And you just do that all the way down until you have 12 stitches joined together. Right, that's number 6. Usually about halfway, I'll check to see that I still have 6 left. So I have 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. And then I should have 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I've only got 5 left. So anytime something like that happens, I just go ahead and say, oh, you know what? We'll just stick another one right through here, and that'll be just fine. It's not really that big of a deal. So if you find that they're not perfectly aligned, being off by 1 stitch is not going to be that big of a deal in the long run. It hides pretty nicely. Right, and then there's my last Join there. Okay. And once I do that, I'm able to then, I'm able to fasten off, and then I can pull my yarn all the way through. And then if you turn it around here, you can see that the ribbing actually joins pretty nicely. What I usually do is I'll take my yarn and tapestry needle, I'll kind of weave it around a couple of times here just to really join that part together. So that way it's a little more seamless. And then even when you flip it up, if you were to fold the cuff, or fold the brim, this looks very similar to the ridging on either side. So it's not like it's going to be that distinct from any of the other pieces of your ribbing. So that to me is a great way to join your ribbing together. And then once you do that, all you have to do is go back, and if you have any loose ends that you had to use, but since you're using just one skein, it shouldn't be too bad. Or if you're using one of the larger sizes with the 2 skeins, it's just one place where you'd have to join. But otherwise you'll just wash and block as needed, but you are ready to wear your new red Zinfandel beanie. I really thank you so much for coming and watching my tutorial video. If you liked what you saw and you want to see more patterns and tutorial videos, please hit the like button and subscribe to get future video notifications. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.